Hey, this is Brian Falchuk from Boston, Massachusetts in the United States of America. I want to give a shout out to the Insurtech business series, Falumi and Damola. What you are doing to help move the industry forward in the African continent, but also more broadly for the industry at large is so incredibly important. As I think about the future of our industry, it's conversations like the ones you're having that will help us move forward. So congratulations on the success of the show. Please keep at it.
Excited to have him because he is from the IRA, that's the insurance regulator from Kenya. And I think that it is really interesting because we've had a lot of business-minded people that have had, either thought leaders from insurance companies or from Insurtech startup. But this is the very first person that is agreeing to come in from the regulator. And I think it's a good thing to have the regulators' perspective when we're talking about insurance and non-insurance related things. So, hello, Elias. How are you today?
Hi, how are you? Thank you for your invitation and good to be here. I'm good today.
We're excited to have you. So, Elias, I know that you are from Kenya, right? Can you tell us about yourself? I'm sure that most of our audience too are eager to know who Elias is.
Right, as you mentioned, I'm Elias Omondi Otieno. I'm a citizen of the Republic of Kenya, having been born and bred in the city of Nairobi. And basically, if you ask who is Elias, Elias is, I would say, a regulator. Based from what I do at the moment, I work with the Insurance Regulatory Authority of Kenya for the last couple of years, close to now 10 years. And my background is ideally been working on the regulatory field, supporting the regulator in Kenya in development of the insurance industry. Above all, I've also been able to assist in various projects across Africa and Asia, helping various regulators, insurance regulators, pensions, and capital markets to develop their regulatory platforms. So quite a lengthy experience, but all in all, professionally, I'm an actuary with a lot of experience in risk modeling, a lot of experience in helping companies to embrace innovation. And yeah, that's basically who I am. And what I do in my free time, I like watching football. I have a lot of interest in football, and I think that's what keeps me. Football is something that I really love playing and I like watching.
Oh, interesting. So, do you have a particular club that you support?
Yeah, I'm a Manchester United fan.
Okay.
English Premier League, but in Kenya, I do support a team called Gor Mahia. Yeah, so those are the two teams that I do support.
Oh, that's fantastic. I bet there's a match coming up. I can't remember when, but I know that there's I heard some people arguing about it today, but there's a match coming up pretty soon. Well, all the best with winning the game, hopefully.
Thank you. We've not been doing well over the last couple of years, but I think we are regaining the glory that was lost a bit. But yeah, we are doing well.
Fantastic. I mean, it's better than Arsenal for now. So.
Yeah. But anyway, we hope that the Arsenal fans will get an insurance cover and to support.
We hope so too. Heartbreak insurance. Okay, so Elias, I wanted to know, aside from you working for the regulators, this is just to actually have an insight on, if you were not working for the regulator, what would you rather be doing?
Yeah, if I was not working for the regulator, ideally I would be a farmer. Or a fisherman because I come near the shores of Lake Victoria. And the reason why I would say that is that I would look into ways in which we can better the livelihood and ideally pick people out of the hardship of life that they are leading now and in a way that would enable them to get financial freedom in regard to their livelihood. So I would basically be a community development person that looks into really be part of the society that makes their lives better. And that basically means that I would work with fishermen and basically farmers near the shores of Lake Victoria, given that I do come from those particular areas.
Wow, that's good to know. And I've often wondered how, I like the fact that you mentioned that you've worked on several projects while working with the IRA. And I'm guessing that this is one of the reasons why you're so passionate about it. And so would that be one of the reasons why you are currently, working on the BIMA Lab Accelerator Program? When it comes to farming, you have to go down to the micro insurance as well as support for Insurtech startups in Africa. Would this also stem from that? Can you tell us a bit more about that Lab Accelerator Program?
Right, yeah, definitely. And one of the things that we do appreciate is that we are living in quite a challenging environment whereby there are so many people that are left out, and these particular persons do experience risks daily. And one of the things that is really heartbreaking is that you'll get someone who has a particular asset. Maybe this person has a one cow, and he faces a certain issue, maybe a medical issue, or he needs to take his son to school. And this cow is the only thing that basically is a source of livelihood. And what he does is basically to sell that cow to ensure that he attends to that risk. So in Africa, there are so many people that are left out within the financial system. And what happens is that their lives are kind of in a place whereby in case a calamity faces them, then they lose that. Now, if you look at Kenya in particular, we are having quite a way to go when it comes to insurance. And when I talk about that, our insurance penetration is close to around 3% against an average of around 6% across the world. And this is something that means that we need to bring more people within the insurance system. Now, how do we do that? The way to do that is by enabling us to come up with solutions that will resonate to these particular persons. And these solutions can only be provided through a very innovative way. Now, we have a way to go. And the only way to go is to ideally be part of the market development. And the insurance regulator, the institution that I work with, have a mandate of regulating, supervising, and managing the market. At the same time, basically providing a market development base. And last year, we initiated a process of developing a very elaborate project, the project that we call the BIMA Innovate project, that has two facets. One of the facets is a BIMA box, the regulatory sandbox, that looks into providing a space for innovators and insurtechs to test their solutions. And also we initiated the BIMA Lab, which basically what you've asked me, what motivated the BIMA Lab, you can get from the story that I've just illustrated. And the BIMA Lab is basically to give a platform to scale innovative ideas to address these particular problems that we're having in the country. The problems of insurance penetration, the problem that people are not well educated about insurance, the problem that we need to provide solutions and products that resonate to their needs. So we initiated this particular process to bring in the innovators and insurtechs to support them in a way that they would get a platform to scale and grow their innovations, these promising innovations that will address these particular problems. And one of the things that we've seen over the last time when we initiated this particular process this year, we wanted to basically set Kenya to be one of the countries that will support the emergence of the next generation of insurtechs. We wanted to deepen the access of financial products and services across Kenya. And this will even go to Africa, because most of the risks that people face in Kenya and in Africa are the same, and wanted to emerge as a regional hub for innovation of insurance. So we want to increase uptake of insurance. We want to ensure that we change the face of insurance. We want to ensure that we provide that platform that will give these particular innovators an opportunity to train, to mentor, and to coach them towards providing structures that will promote maybe partnership, access to market, and enable these innovations to be a springboard to bring all these people that are currently uninsured or underinsured or have no access to insurance at all to be part of this particular conversation.
Wow, that's awesome. That's really fantastic. You know, we've had conversations with different Insurtech founders and insurance entities from Kenya. And, you know, it just shows that, the IRA is actually building an ecosystem for all of that. I mean, your insurance penetration is next to South Africa, is one of the best in Africa compared to other climes that we've been, accustomed to. And I think that the IRA, you guys are doing fantastically well, to get a hold of this penetration and, further grow the industry. But then again, I also would like to know, what do you think that the insurance regulatory need to do, especially as it relates to, the digital and financial environmental trends in Kenya? I know that you've talked about those strategies that you want to use to further penetrate the market, but with the changing times and with the current trends, how exactly do you want to help to see that insurance and Insurtech startups are equipped for this coming trends?
Yeah, thank you. That's a very good question. And one of the things that I would want to bring into perspective is that most people, and particularly the insurtechs and the innovators that would want really to venture in various countries, have or they lack regulatory clarity on what are the do's and what are the don'ts. And with that, then you create what we call a lacuna of where do we start as innovators. And this is something that we wanted to ensure that we deal with. Now, the only way to deal with that is providing what we call regulatory clarity. And regulatory clarity is something that is highly needed when it comes to ensuring that you bring in a new emerging sets of insurtech companies. You give them a platform to change the financial system. And the only way to do that is basically to bring these discussions to a point whereby they're led in a way by the regulator. And what you've seen us doing, we initiated that particular process whereby we thought that the way to advance this is through partnerships. And that's why we've in our Bimala project, we have quite fantastic partners. We have the UK Tech Hub, the Department of International Trade, United Kingdom, we have the Telestic, we have Prudential, and all this will enable us support and advance the partnership. And the areas that we were focusing on, particularly that is key to ensuring that this particular process goes, is by enhancing the incubation support. And when we talk about this, we wanted to ensure that we strengthen the mentorship network, we strengthen the incubation services and facilities for these innovators and entrepreneurs. The second thing is that we have talked about an ecosystem, and we are basically putting up a startup ecosystem that will help us develop an ecosystem for this startup support and pipe them to an exit whereby we build a framework that will enhance the innovation, will enhance the entrepreneurship among the youth before incubation, and even push them to the next level whereby they can now develop the products that will be accustomed to the customers up towards a point of scale. So that ecosystem is not something that we're not going to get in round one. We are also testing the ecosystem building, and it might not mean that the partners that we have will be the only ones that we'll be working with. we want to expand this to ensure that it works for all of us and enables us to ensure that we bring those people that are not within the insurance into insurance. The last thing is the acceleration support, and that's why you look at what we are doing currently within our framework. Is basically to accelerate the growth and the scale of these startups within the incubation period. And this will ensure that are they able to get their financial investments? Are they able to get their technical support? Are the networks going to be created for them to come up with an insurance community that will leverage on the investor network and enable them interact with those particular investors? So it's really, really important to work across this. But the only way that this will work is ideally from the regulator's perspective is a regulatory clarity. Give them a clear ways in which they can operate. At the same time, ensure that they do not expose customers to a number of risks that might also bring in reputational issues. So ideally is that we need to create that balance. And when I talk about regulatory clarity, it's basically creating a balance that will enhance and accelerate innovation, but also ensuring that consumers are well protected. So the balance between market development and consumer protection should well be catered for when it comes to regulatory clarity.
Oh wow, thank you. I think that is really good. I like the fact that you talked about striking a balance between being customer centric as well as also enabling these Insurtech startups as well as insurance companies. I think it's a good one to have a bit of compliance as well as creating that atmosphere for growth. It's what built a formidable insurance and Insurtech companies, and I think that it's really commendable to see that these are the things that are happening in Kenya. But with respect to the fact that you mentioned financial investments as well as operations, the new implementation of IFRS 17, being a risk analyst, I'm quite aware that it's going to cause a bit of more or less like you have like short-term losses. How exactly is the regulator trying to position themselves to provide, adequate supervision for that bit of, reporting for insurance and Insurtech startups in Kenya?
Very good question. Now, when we talk about IFRS 17 and really with the preparedness around this, maybe just to give a background of what this is for our listeners, IFRS 17 is a standard for insurance contracts, and what it comes to do is to replace what we call IFRS 4. And this is basically a ways in which insurance accounting practices are taken. And one of the things that what IFRS 17 wants to do is basically to provide consistency on principles in the aspects of accounting for insurance contracts. Now, this is something that we were not able to do with the IFRS 4 because ideally IFRS 4 and insurance industry compared to the other industries, you could not really compare insurance and other industries. Now, IFRS 17 really intends to enable us to do that. Another thing is around issues of, I would say, transparency across various products, given that you will get that a company is operating in maybe Nigeria and you have a branch in Kenya. And if you used IFRS 4 in terms of the reporting, there will be significant differences around accounting for those particular policies. Now, under IFRS 17, consistent accounting for insurance contracts will apply for even multinational companies. Now, the question is then, how does this really impact Insurtechs and even insurance companies? I know there is need to prepare for this. It comes to effect in 2023. And one of the ways in which it's going to impact, it's going to look at the way assumptions are reflecting to timing of cash flows and issues around insurance contracting will be done. Now, one of the best things is that it will enable us really look at how do we value insurance liabilities in a way. And this will, in a way, affect the way we do our pricing. it will be important to properly price for the product. And one of the issues that you can attest in Africa, pricing is highly competitive, and that kind of leads to some issues around undercutting. So on the insurance side, a greater impact. On the Insurtech side, it will highly be dependent on the products, and if someone is underwriting quite short-term kind of products, the impact wouldn't be as massive as most people writing long-term products. Now, in Africa, one of the ways to create an impact, particularly for the what we call the startups, is that short-term policies will be quite key, given that these will be micro insurance kind of products. I know some products will have to cover quite a number of risks. Again, there will be a way in which IFRS 17 will have an impact on that, dependent on the type of risk. But the only thing is that, and what I want listeners to take home, is that this standard really focuses on transparency in terms of reporting, and it will enable us compare our industry with other industries, and even give value in which you would ideally look at the performance, look at the metrics, and evaluate how insurers performs over different circumstances and time. So I think it's something that is welcome. It might take time, it might need a change of systems, but the best thing is that it will give us a positive outlook and give us ways in which we will be able to address our risks going forward.
Okay, thank you very much, Elias. So I also wanted to know, I know that you've actually broken down this IFRS 17, and I mean, you've addressed in terms of how it threatens the short-term profitability of those companies. What do you think would be the impact of, I mean, I want to talk about the AFTA, that's the African Free Trade Agreement. How do you think that the IRA intends to contribute to the success of this inter-country distribution of insurance, both at the policy making and supervisory level?
I think, and particularly the insurance regulator of Kenya, IRA, one of the things is that we've been at the forefront trying to really support different countries in Africa towards really enhancing their systems of supervision, enhancing their regulatory guidelines and standards. And we've been a home for many, I would say, guests coming in to learn on what we are doing. And this is not something that we are going to stop. For instance, maybe I can give an example. We've been at the forefront working together with East Africa, IMF, to support East African region, close to 7 countries in East Africa to enhance their solvency standard. This project has been there for the last 3 years now, and we are having quite a good product, what we call as a simplified solvency to approach for the region that is fit for purpose for the 8 countries across East Africa. With this, we intend to ensure that we harmonize what we call the supervisory standards across the region, and even enable those particular countries to move towards adopting what we call a risk sensitive market that looks at the risks profiles, and what basically happens is that the responses or the actions taken within the region will highly be dependent on the risks. So we've been doing quite a lot across the region. We've received so many regulators coming in. And even with the Bimala project, what we intend to do is that as we learn on this particular journey that we are taking now, we are looking forward to see how then it can be replicated in other countries, because innovations are cut across different countries. And one of the things that we can do is open it up rather than close it within Kenya, because we are living in an environment, we are living in a global village, and each and every solution that is needed in country A can be part of solution in country B. And if we don't do that, then we won't be able to be part of an African regulator that spearheads the change that is necessary. So we are part of this process. We are going to support wherever possible. We are going to still open our doors for discussions with other countries for the purposes of building a very sensitive environment for our customers' needs, but also a very responsible environment to ensure that we are having very stable financial system. Thank you.
Okay, I mean, these are like very impressive things to hear from the insurance regulator, and I think that it would be nice for other countries to emulate, not just building an ecosystem that allows for innovation, but also, I mean, thinking and working ahead of, time. Honestly, it's one of the amazing things. And like I mentioned before, with our conversations with insurance experts and Insurtech business owners from Kenya, we've been able to see that there's actually support by the IRA, and this is just about the way to go. So what would you advise other regulators in Africa? I mean, we've been having a bit of issue. Our last conference we had Richard Leftley, who talked about how the whole microinsurance system was, not effective in Nigeria because of the regulations and the regulators as well. And of course, that sort of, in a way, killed that particular part of the business. So what do you advise that other regulators in Africa would do to emulate, most of the things that you guys are doing in Kenya?
Ideally, it's a balance. What if a regulator will not be able to balance between consumer protection and market development, then you will be able to get some sentiments that are not progressive. Now, how do we do that? The only way to do that is basically trying to be part of the solution and not waiting for all the new ideas in your offices, because most of the time you get that a regulator will wait for an approach from the office, and what comes that is that whenever you do approach the regulator, most of the time it will be this thing cannot be done. They don't give an opportunity for testing. They don't give an opportunity for being part of the discussion and the process of solving and providing the solution. So the only way that we need, and I'm not saying that we've done everything 100%. It's all about learning. It's all about trying to do new things and trying to create that particular balance. And as we try to do all this, we usually ensure that we don't really forget the mandate at which the regulators are set to work with. The best is that allow room for discussion, allow room for pilot, allow room for testing, allow room for new ideas to come in. And within that, ensure that that particular balance is achieved. And another thing is that ensure that you can easily change your laws and regulations to look at the bigger good for the citizens. Most of the time you'll get that you approach with quite a good solution, but that good solution is kind of limitized by the law. Now, the two things that you need to think about is, will I basically kill this good solution because the law is there, or should I look at ways in which we can have a platform to test this new solution for the purposes of ideally having it be part of the change that we need in our jurisdiction? And one thing that we have been doing is you can have what we call a piloting of new ideas. We recently initiated a regulatory sandbox that enables us to test some of these solutions within a controlled environment, so that also you limit the impact of failure. Because again, you should also be quite careful in cases where there is failure, and in cases where the failures are quite big, you can have what we call a very reputational issue within the insurance system. So all that I'm trying to say is that balance. And once a regulator enables to get that balance, then you'll be able to see quite a progressive way of how you conduct your regulatory work. Another thing is that we encourage the players within the market to be part of the solution. And this is whereby you kind of encourage and you visit the regulator, have those discussions, open up and raise issues that will have an impact on your industry, rather than just running away from the regulator. One thing that I usually say, regulators are not policemen. They're not looking for the bad things. And that is something that changed when regulators moved from an approach that we used to call a compliance-based approach to a risk-based approach. More of principles. What are these good principles that we should be following? And once we came up with a principle-based approach in which we look at issues and solutions, then that changed the way regulators were perceived in the past. So the only thing that I can advise different or regulators across the world, let's try and strive to get that balance. Let's follow the new standard of regulation, and let's have the discussions with our insurance companies, intermediaries, Insurtechs, with the one goal, the goal of ensuring that the risks that are not currently covered, or those people that have not money, that those people that cannot afford insurance can afford insurance, and those risks that they are facing are well taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elias. I mean, this is really, it's good to have this and to have a different perspective as to how to go about, being a regulator, a compliance, supervisory level, and all of that. So thank you for this different point of view that we had from you. We're hoping to have partnerships with the IRA in the future, especially with you, Elias. Hopefully, this is not so far off, not in the very, very far future. But thank you so much for coming on to our podcast. And before you go, for those people who want to connect with you, how exactly can they connect?
Right. I'm on LinkedIn, Elias Omondi, LinkedIn, and also on Twitter at Elias Omondi FIA. Also, you can reach out to me on email. I'll be able to share any person that would be interested. They can reach out to you, and I can share my email address. And also, if you reach to me through LinkedIn, I should be able to share my email address for us to get connected. So Elias Omondi, LinkedIn, at Elias Omondi FIA on Twitter, and let's connect. Let's get to discuss. We can be part of the solution that will basically be able to transform Africa and make it better in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. We hope that you enjoy the rest of your day. And of course, we will stay in touch. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And also thank you very much for organizing this series. We hope that this is a platform that will give us and make us the next resilient continent in the world. Thank you.
Hi, this is Paul Miller from London. Really enjoyed the podcast. Keep it going. Thanks very much.
Amazing conversation. And it was quite interesting to hear about, like we mentioned before the conversation, we've spoken to a lot of people who are from Kenya, and there are glowing remarks as regards what the regulator is doing and creating that enabling environment. So hearing from the horse's mouth really was quite interesting, and learning about how they are thinking about innovation and technology and enabling Insurtechs, to thrive. I mean, that's what we are most concerned about, innovation, technology, in insurance and really around Insurtechs. And so, I mean, the idea around creating the sandbox and the Bima Lab really stood out for me. And the idea around, helping these Insurtechs to understand the regulatory requirements for playing in the space and being a part of, their product creation, and helping them to shape their ideas so that they are not going against what those market guidelines are. Because I remember you talked about that the lacuna that gets created when Insurtechs, for example, don't know what the regulator is expecting, right? So I think it makes sense for them to be a part of the solution, like he mentioned, and it's quite interesting. What about you, Folumi? You had the conversation, but I'm sure that you must have enjoyed that.
You actually in a way summarized most of the things that it mentioned. And one thing again that also stood out for me was the fact that, having asked about the African Continental Free Trade Agreement and how they'll be moving in from country to country, one thing that stood out again for me was how you mentioned that the IRA already had started that kind of initiative even before signing the actual agreement. That shows preparedness. And there's one thing that people keep saying, that sometimes when opportunity meets preparedness, it brings quality results. And like I mentioned before we start the conversation, was the fact that one thing IRA keeps doing is to ensure that they keep continuously build that ecosystem for the insurance and Insurtech space to thrive. And like you mentioned, the Bima Lab is one thing again that they've been trying as much as possible to push out to encourage Insurtechs alike. And having all of these innovations would eventually see to the growth of this insurance industry in Kenya, because if there's a different approach to how things are supposed to work in a particular environment, of course, these things will begin to translate to premium income, will begin to translate to increase in the penetration index rates, will begin to translate eventually to the contribution of the industry to the overall GDP of Kenya. And I know that at the end of the conversation was to talk about how Nigerian insurance regulator can replicate something like this. And it's important that I feel like it should be at this point where we need to now begin to have conversations with our regulators to see, what, these things are happening in other climes. They are doing it and it's working for them. If we say we're having over 200 million population, then we say that we're having 82 people that are living beyond 82 million Nigerians that are living below the poverty line. How exactly do we now begin to, reduce our insurance products to cater to that particular segment? What partnerships do we need to create? For instance, what ecosystem do we need to establish? There are other investments in how to diversify the Nigerian economy. How are we looking to penetrate that space? You will remember that during our webinar, when we had a conversation about the agribusiness, you can imagine what the conversations that we had about how it is that, for instance, Nike and other insurance companies could partner with Bank of Industries, as well as, in order to provide fund for our agribusinesses. Now, there's after. What are the insurance regulatory doing in order to ensure that it is not at the point where people are now moving goods from place to place? It's now when we now begin to sit down to think of, okay, so at this point, what policies do we need to create? And what ecosystem do we need to start building? We need to start now. As a matter of fact, it's a tad late, but it is not too late. So it means that we need to start putting in those infrastructures in place, those policies, enhancing policies in place. We need to start catering to all of those necessities to ensure that we are able to get the best of this ACTA agreement. We are able to ensure that those opportunities and investments in the insurance space from other clients who are coming to see or to access those market opportunities in Nigeria. And one person again still comes to mind. It has to be our regulator. But we need to move from a cane approach to now a thriving approach. We don't have to always, hammer on compliance. We need to start building those ecosystems, establishing those partnerships with other regulators, and creating those enabling policies that would help both the insurance companies grow as well as allow Insurtech startups to thrive within the same space. So those were the things that, stood out for me.
It's important for regulators to be proactive, like he mentioned, be a part of the solution. Don't wait for them to come to you. Go to the market and be a part of the solution. This is what is driving the market. How can you be a part of it so that there is no, gray area, so to say, and I think that's why, they set up the Bima Lab, and the sandbox. So and it's quite interesting. I mean, we've had conversation with some people in Kenya, and some of them are actually part of the lab, and the feedback really has been interesting, learning about how their experience has been, and it's been really interesting for them, and we're definitely going to be seeing some interesting things from them. Elias mentioned that the idea is to make Kenya, a hub for Insurtech development and innovation. Is that going to be the case? They're making steps in that direction. The question now is, where is Nigeria going to be in all of this? What are we doing in order to bridge that, or to be a part of those kind of conversations and improvements for the industry generally in Africa? Watch and see.
Yeah, you've said it all. We should really just have to watch and see, and continuously engage in these conversations until we are sure that implementation has begun and our regulators are actively listening to us as well, knowing that we are expecting some of these possibilities and opportunities in the industry. Which brings me to congratulating Curacao, which has obviously got a $450,000 pre-seed fund. I think that's very commendable, really. What do you think about that, Damola?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm super pumped. Special shout out to Henry Mascot. Curacao actually were one of our sponsors in our first ever Insurtech conference last year, and so super pumped for them. Yeah. They're creating some amazing stuff in the claims space, and so it's great that they're getting this kind of funding now to expand. So congratulations to them, and it's testament to some of the hard work that they've been doing in the background, and definitely rooting for them. They're a friend of the house, so congrats to Curacao.
Congratulations. Okay, on that note, before we let you go, we'd also like to bring to your attention that we've got our anniversary event coming up, as well as the IBS Women in Insurance webinar coming up soon in May. But first, let's even talk about the anniversary. So we're going to be having 4 notable writers as well as, eloquent speakers from the insurance space. Brian Falchuk, the author, of course, our very first guest and the IBS Man of the Year, Rob Galbraith,
Eunice Minor from Kenya, and Frederick Bisbjörg from the United Arab Emirates. Amazing guys. We're going to be speaking to them, celebrating, but also taking the opportunity to speak to them around their books and what people can learn from some of the knowledge that they've put together in all of those books. Learning is one of the pillars for Insurtech Business Series, and we thought that it was quite important that we bring these books to the knowledge of our community. It will be interesting to hear from their perspective around what the industry is going to be like in the coming years as well. So we're looking forward to that conversation. It's on the 30th of April, so make it a date. It's going to be live on LinkedIn. live on LinkedIn, and so we're happy for you to join us.
Yeah, so please don't miss out. For the IBS, Damola's already given details about this event. So for the IBS women in insurance, we would also communicate that in the coming days. We already have our guest speakers, but I think so we don't bombard you with a lot of upcoming events. We would, in our next episode, we would, as much as possible, give out details about the IBS women in insurance webinar that's forthcoming. So once again, thank you very much, and always feel free to reach out to us on our various social media handle, especially on LinkedIn. We're always available to take your questions, your inquiries, as well as for those that are looking out to sponsor the Insurtech Business Series podcast. We're available for sponsorship. Thank you, and hope you have a fantastic weekend.
Yeah, thank you. Take care of yourself and stay safe.
Bye.